There are stories that don't make the headlines, cases that are never fully explained, and things that don't stay buried. The kind of stories people don't talk about because they can't. But you found them anyway. This is Studio Sinister.
Part 1. The Arrival.
The U-Haul's brakes squealed as Sarah Brennan pulled into the gravel driveway of 47 Maple Street, Millbrook, Pennsylvania. Population 2,847, according to the faded green sign she'd passed 20 minutes ago. The house looked exactly like the photos from the rental listing. A modest, two-bedroom colonial with peeling white paint and a sagging front porch. Perfect. Anonymous. Far enough from Pittsburgh that Derek would never think to look for her there. She killed the engine and sat in the sudden silence, her hand still gripping the steering wheel. Through the windshield, she could see a woman watching from the house next door, half hidden behind lace curtains. Sarah raised a hand in greeting. The curtain fell back into place. Welcome to the neighborhood, she thought. It was late September, and the trees lining Maple Street blazed with autumn colors, reds and golds that would have seemed beautiful if Sarah had any capacity left for beauty. Instead, they just looked like fire. Everything looked like fire these days. Or blood. Or the particular shade of purple-yellow her skin turned after Derek's fist found her ribs. She touched her side reflexively. The bruises were 2 weeks old now, faded to a sickly green. The last ones he'd ever give her. Sarah climbed out of the truck, her joints stiff from the 3-hour drive. The air smelled different here, cleaner than the city, but with an underlying scent she couldn't quite place. Something organic and old, like wet leaves and stone. The street was quiet except for the distant sound of a lawnmower and the rustle of wind through the trees. The front door of the neighboring house opened and the woman emerged. She was perhaps 60, with steel gray hair pulled into a tight bun and a floral house dress that looked like it belonged to a different decade. She carried a covered dish.
"You must be the new tenant,"
the woman said, crossing the small strip of lawn between her properties. Her smile didn't reach her eyes.
"I'm Margaret Holloway. I live next door."
Sarah Brennan.
She accepted the dish. It was warm through the towel.
Thank you. You didn't have to.
"Tuna casserole."
Margaret interrupted.
"I always bring something to new arrivals. It's tradition."
She said the word tradition with peculiar emphasis, like it was capitalized.
"How long will you be staying?"
I'm not sure yet. The lease is month to month.
Margaret's expression flickered with something Sarah couldn't read. Disappointment, concern.
"I see. Well, you picked an interesting time to arrive.
Oh?
The festival is in 2 weeks.
Again, that strange emphasis.
The whole town participates. You'll want to attend."
I'll keep that in mind.
Sarah said, though she had no intention of attending any small-town festivals. She'd come here to disappear, not to socialize. Margaret studied her face with an intensity that made Sarah want to step back.
"You have kind eyes,
She said finally.
but sad. Something's hurt you."
Sarah's throat tightened.
I should probably start unloading.
Of course, of course.
Margaret patted her arm with a cold hand.
If you need anything, I'm right next door.
She paused at the property line.
And Sarah? Lock your doors at night. All of them. Even the windows.
Before Sarah could respond, Margaret had disappeared back into her house. Sarah stood holding the casserole, a chill running down her spine that had nothing to do with the autumn air. The house was smaller than it had looked in the photos, with low ceilings and narrow hallways that made Sarah feel claustrophobic. But it was clean and it was hers. Or at least, it wasn't Derek's. That was enough. She spent the afternoon unloading boxes, arranging her meager possessions in rooms that echoed with emptiness. She left most of her life behind in Pittsburgh. The furniture, the wedding china, the framed photos of a marriage that had curdled into something toxic and violent. She'd taken on only what she could fit in the U-Haul. Clothes, books, her grandmother's quilt, and the .38 special she bought 3 months ago when Derek's rages had started, including threats to kill her. The gun was in her nightstand now, loaded, safety on. She told herself she'd never need it. Derek didn't know where she was. She'd been careful, new phone number, new bank account, cash-only transactions for the deposit and the first month's rent. She'd even used her maiden name on the lease. But still, the gun was there, just in case. As evening fell, Sarah heated up Margaret's casserole and ate it, standing at the kitchen window looking out at the backyard. The property backed up to the woods, thick, old-growth forest that seemed to press against the chain-link fence like something alive. In the fading light, she could see shapes moving between the trees. Deer, probably, or raccoons. She was washing her dish when she heard the knock. Sarah froze, her heart suddenly hammering. He found you. He found you already. But when she peered through the peephole, she saw a man in his 50s with a kind face and a sheriff's uniform. She opened the door, keeping the chain on.
Yes?
Evening, ma'am. I'm Sheriff Tom Garrett. Just wanted to stop by and introduce myself. Welcome you to Millbrook.
He held up a badge.
Mind if I come in for a moment?
Every instinct screamed at her to say no, but he was the sheriff, and she was trying to start over, trying to be normal. Normal people let the sheriff in. She unhooked the chain. Sheriff Garrett stepped inside, his eyes scanning the sparse living room with professional efficiency.
Moving in okay?
Fine, thank you.
Good, good.
He turned to face her, and his expression was friendly but assessing.
I like to meet all the new residents personally. Millbrook's a small town. We look out for each other here. Where'd you move from?
Pittsburgh.
Big change. What brings you to our little corner of the world?
Sarah had prepared for this question.
I needed a fresh start, quieter pace of life.
Running from something?
The question was casual, but his eyes were sharp.
No.
She lied.
Just running to something better.
He nodded slowly.
Well, you picked a good town. Safe. Low crime rate. We take care of our own here.
He paused.
You'll be here for the festival, I hope.
There was that word again, festival,
I'm not much for crowds.
Sarah said.
Oh, you'll want to make an exception for this one.
Sheriff Garrett's smile widened, but it looked wrong somehow, like a mask that didn't quite fit.
It's mandatory, actually. Town ordinance. Every resident must attend.
Mandatory?
Sarah laughed nervously.
It's tradition.
He said, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop.
Been that way for over 200 years. The festival is what keeps Millbrook safe, what keeps us all safe.
He moved toward the door, then turned back.
You'll receive a formal invitation in a few days. I strongly suggest you accept it for your own good.
After he left, Sarah locked the door and leaned against it, her hand shaking.
What the fuck kind of town is this?
Part 2. Integration.
The next few days passed in a haze of unpacking and uneasy exploration. Sarah ventured into town to buy groceries and supplies, and everywhere she went, people stared. Not hostile exactly, but watchful, assessing. The grocery store clerk, a teenage girl with braces and a name tag that read Emily, rang up her items in silence before suddenly asking,
Are you going to the festival?
I'm not sure yet.
Emily's eyes widened.
You have to go. Everyone has to go. It's the rules.
What happens at this festival?
Sarah asked. The girl's mouth opened, then closed. She glanced toward the back of the store where an older man, the manager, presumably, was watching them.
It's a celebration
She said finally, her voice flat.
of our town's history. There's food and music and the drawing.
The drawing?
That's $23.47.
Emily said, her face suddenly pale.
Cash or credit?
Sarah paid in cash and left with more questions than answers. The library was her next stop. If the townspeople wouldn't tell her about the festival, maybe the historical records would. The Millbrook Public Library was a small brick building on Main Street, presided over by a librarian who introduced herself as Mrs. Chen.
I'm interested in the town's history,
Sarah said.
particularly the festival everyone keeps mentioning.
Mrs. Chen's expression shuddered.
The festival is a private community matter.
But surely there are historical records.
The relevant materials are not available for public viewing.
Mrs. Chen's voice was firm.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
Sarah left the library frustrated and increasingly unnerved. What kind of town had mandatory festivals and secret historical records? That night, she dreamed of the woods behind her house. In the dream, something massive moved between the trees, too large to be a deer, too deliberate to be the wind. It had too many limbs and eyes that glowed like embers. While it opened its mouth, it spoke in a voice like grinding stone.
The debt must be paid.
She woke, gasping, her sheets soaked with sweat. The invitation arrived on the 5th day. It was hand-delivered by a boy who couldn't have been more than 10, with solemn eyes and a formal manner that seemed wrong on someone so young. He handed her a cream-colored envelope with her name written in elegant calligraphy, then left without a word. Inside was a card printed on expensive stock. You are cordially invited to attend the annual Millbrook Festival on October 7th at 7 p.m. in the town square. Attendance is mandatory for all residents. Formal attire requested. The drawing will commence at 9:00 p.m. Failure to attend will result in immediate eviction and permanent banishment from Millbrook. Sarah read it 3 times, her hands trembling. Immediate eviction. Could they even do that? She signed a lease, paid her deposit. But the words on the card were clear, and something in her gut told her this wasn't an idle threat. She called the number for her landlord, a man named Robert Thorne, who lived in the next town over. The phone rang 8 times before going to voicemail.
Mr. Thorne, this is Sarah Brennan, your tenant at 47 Maple Street. I received a strange invitation to something called the festival, and it says attendance is mandatory or I'll be evicted. I need to know if this is legitimate. Please call me back.
He never did. Sarah started taking walks through town, trying to understand the place she'd stumbled into. Millbrook was picturesque, in a Norman Rockwell sort of way. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained homes, a white church with a tall steeple. But there was something off about it, something she couldn't quite articulate. The people, for one thing, They were friendly enough on the surface, but their eyes were always watching, always evaluating, and they all asked the same question: will you be at the festival? She started saying yes just to end the conversations. On her 6th day in Millbrook, Sarah met Father Michael at the church. She wasn't religious. Derek had beaten that out of her along with so much else. But the church was beautiful, and she needed somewhere quiet to think. Father Michael was younger than she expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a gentle voice. He found her sitting in a pew staring at the stained glass windows.
"You're the new arrival,
He said, sliding into the pew beside her.
Sarah, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm Father Michael. Welcome to Millbrook.
He folded his hands in his lap.
How are you settling in?
I'm doing okay, thanks. But everyone keeps asking me about the festival, if I'm going.
Huh.
He was quiet for a moment.
Yes, the festival is important to this community.
Why?
Father Michael looked at the altar, at the cross hanging above it.
Every community has its traditions, its rituals, things that bind people together that give them purpose and protection.
Protection from what?
He turned to look at her, and his eyes were infinitely sad.
From the alternative.
I don't understand.
You will.
He stood, placing a hand on her shoulder.
Sarah, I want you to know that whatever happens, God sees you. God knows your heart, and sometimes the most faithful thing we can do is survive.
He left her there, more confused and frightened than ever.
Part 3. Discovery.
Sarah couldn't sleep. It was 3 in the morning, and she lay in bed listening to the sounds of the house settling. The wind in the trees, the distant howl of what might have been a dog, but sounded too large. She got up and went to the window, pulling back the curtain to look at the woods behind her house. Something was moving out there. Not deer, not small game animals. Something massive, something that made the trees sway as it passed. She could see it only in glimpses. A flash of pale flesh, a limb that bent at too many joints, eyes that reflected the moonlight like mirrors. Sarah stumbled back from the window, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. She grabbed her phone, started to dial 911, then stopped. What would she say? There's something in the woods? The sheriff would come, would look at her with those assessing eyes, would ask again if she was running from something. She didn't call. Instead, she spent the rest of the night sitting in her living room with all the lights on and the .38 in her lap, watching the windows, waiting for dawn. The next day, exhausted and desperate, Sarah drove to the next town over, a place called Riverside, about 30 miles from Millbrook. She needed to talk to someone who wasn't part of whatever was happening in Millbrook, someone who might give her straight answers. She found a diner and ordered coffee she didn't drink, then asked the waitress.
Do you know anything about Millbrook?
The waitress, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes and a name tag that read Donna, stiffened.
Why do you ask?
I just moved there. People keep talking about some festival, and it's all very strange.
Donna glanced around the diner, then leaned in close.
You need to leave that town. Millbrook is wrong. Has been for as long as I can remember. People go there and sometimes they don't come back, or they come back changed.
She gripped Sarah's wrist.
My sister lived there 20 years ago. She went to one of their festivals. I never saw her again. The town said she moved away, but she never called, never wrote. It was like she vanished.
What happened to her?
Donna's eyes were wet.
Leave, honey, before the festival. Just pack up and go.
Sarah wanted to. God, she wanted to. But where would she go? Back to Pittsburgh, where Derek was waiting? She had no money, no job, nowhere else to run.
I can't.
She whispered. Donna released her wrist and stepped back. Her expression hardened it into something like pity.
Then may God have mercy on your soul.
Sarah returned to Millbrook as the sun was setting, her mind churning. She needed to know what she was dealing with. If she couldn't leave, she needed to understand. She parked in her driveway and was heading for her front door when Margaret appeared, moving with surprising speed for a woman her age.
Where have you been?
Margaret demanded.
You can't leave town. Not now. Not so close to the festival.
I went to Riverside.
You need to stay here.
Margaret's fingers dug into Sarah's arm.
It's not safe to leave. Not for you. Not anymore.
What are you talking about?
Sarah jerked her arm free.
I can go wherever I want.
Margaret's face crumpled.
No, dear. You can't. None of us can. Once you're here, once you're part of the community, you're bound to it. To the covenant.
What covenant?
The one that keeps us safe. The one that keeps it fed.
Margaret's voice dropped to a whisper.
The one that's kept Millbrook alive for 200 years.
Sarah's blood ran cold.
Fed? What are you feeding?
But Margaret was already retreating, shaking her head.
You'll understand at the festival. Everyone understands at the festival.
That night, Sarah broke into the library. It wasn't hard. The lock on the back door was old, and she'd learned a few things during her marriage to Derek, including how to pick simple locks. He'd lock her in the bedroom once, and she taught herself how to get out. The library was dark and silent, smelling of old paper and dust. Sarah used her phone's flashlight to navigate to the local history section, where Mrs. Chen had been so adamant about keeping her away. The books were there behind a locked glass case. Sarah used a letter opener from the librarian's desk to jimmy it open. Inside were ledgers, journals, and bound volumes dating back to 1793. She pulled out the oldest one, her hand shaking, and began to read. October 7th, 1793. The covenant is sealed. The creature has accepted our terms. 1 life per year, chosen by lot, in exchange for protection and prosperity. The first drawing was held tonight. Mary Hutchinson drew the black stone. She went to the woods willingly, understanding the necessity. Her screams lasted only a few minutes. The town is safe. The crops will grow. The children will thrive. This is the price we pay. Sarah's stomach lurched. She flipped through the ledger, finding entry after entry, year after year. October 7th, 1796. Samuel Thorne drew the black stone. October 7th, 1794. Thomas Kraft drew the black stone. October 7th, 1795. Elizabeth Corwin drew the black stone. On and on, 200 years of names, 200 years of sacrifices. She grabbed another ledger, this one more recent. October 7th, 1995, Jennifer Martinez drew the black stone. She tried to run. Sheriff Garrett brought her back. The creature was angry at the delay. It took 3 others before it was satisfied. We cannot allow anyone to run again. Sarah's vision blurred. She was going to be sick. The last entry was from October 7, 1996. David Chen drew the black stone. The sacrifice was completed without incident. The town remains protected. The covenant holds. She heard a sound behind her and spun around. Sheriff Garrett stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable.
I was wondering when you'd figure it out.
Part 4. The Truth.
Sarah backed away, clutching the ledger to her chest.
You're insane. All of you. You're fucking insane.
No, we're survivors.
Sheriff Garrett said calmly. He stepped into the library, and Sarah saw he wasn't alone. Father Michael was with him, and Mrs. Chen, and Margaret, and a dozen others. The townspeople closing in.
You can't do this.
Sarah said, her voice breaking.
You can't just sacrifice people. It's murder.
It's survival.
Father Michael said softly.
200 years ago, this town was dying, crops failing, children starving, disease everywhere. Our ancestors were desperate, and then they found it in the woods. The creature, ancient, powerful, hungry. It offered them a deal, 1 life per year, and the town would prosper. The crops would grow, the children would be healthy. No disease, no disaster, no suffering.
Except for the person you murder.
Sarah spat.
It's a fair trade.
Mrs. Chen said.
There's nothing fair about it.
Sheriff Garrett moved closer.
You don't understand yet, but you will. The creature doesn't just protect us from natural disasters. It protects us from everything. From violence, from crime, from the evil that exists in the outside world. Nothing bad happens in Millbrook. Nothing except the festival.
Sarah thought of Derek, of his fists, of the fear she'd lived with for 5 years.
Then why did I come here? Why did you let me move here if you knew?
We need new blood.
Margaret said gently.
The town's population has been declining. Fewer people means a higher chance of being chosen. We need newcomers to balance the odds.
The ledger slipped from Sarah's hands.
You're using me. You brought me here to be part of your lottery.
We brought you here to be part of our community.
Father Michael said.
And yes, that means participating in the festival, in the drawing. Everyone participates. Everyone takes the risk. That's what makes it fair.
Fair?
Sarah laughed, a high hysterical sound.
You think this is fair?
Fairer than the alternative.
Sheriff Garrett said.
Do you know what happened to the towns around us? Riverside, Oakmont, Millerville? They're dying. Drugs, crime, poverty, disease. Their children are sick. Their crops fail. They suffer every day. We don't. We have 1 night of suffering per year, and the rest of the time we live in peace.
I won't do it.
Sarah said.
I won't participate in your sick ritual.
Well, then you'll be evicted.
Mrs. Chen said.
And once you leave Millbrook, the creature's protection leaves with you. Whatever you were running from will find you. The creature will make sure of it.
Sarah's blood turned to ice.
What?
The covenant works both ways.
Sheriff Garrett explained.
The creature protects us, but it also ensures our compliance. Anyone who leaves Millbrook, anyone who refuses to participate, loses that protection. And more than that, they become marked, cursed. Whatever they fear most will find them within a week.
Sarah thought of Derek, of his rage, his violence, his promises to kill her if she ever left.
You're lying.
We're not.
Margaret said sadly.
I'm sorry, dear, but you're one of us now. You have been since the moment you signed that lease. The covenant binds all residents of Millbrook. You can participate in the drawing and take your chances with the rest of us. Or you can leave and face certain.
There has to be another way.
There isn't.
Father Michael said.
Believe me, we've tried. Generations have tried. The covenant cannot be broken. The creature cannot be killed. This is the world we live in. This is the price we pay for safety.
Sarah looked around at their faces. Sad, resigned, but also determined. They believed this. They truly believed that sacrificing 1 person per year was acceptable, necessary, even moral.
I need to think,
she said.
You have 3 days.
Sheriff Garrett said.
The festival is in 3 days. Be there or face the consequences.
They left her alone in the library, surrounded by 200 years of death.
Part 5. The Festival.
Sarah spent the next 3 days in a fog of terror and indecision. She packed her bags a dozen times, ready to run, then unpack them again, paralyzed by fear. Could she really go back out there? Back to a world where Derek was waiting? Where the creature's curse would ensure he found her? But could she stay here? Could she participate in a lottery that might end with her being fed to some ancient monster in the woods? She researched the creature, searching books for any mention of Millbrook's dark secret. She found nothing. The town's presence was minimal. Basic pamphlets with tourist information, a few reviews of the diner mentioned in old newspapers. Nothing about festivals, sacrifices, or creatures in the woods. She tried calling the state police, but when she started to explain, the line went dead. She tried again. Same result. It was like something was preventing her from getting help. On the morning of October 7th, Sarah made her decision. She would attend the festival. She would participate in the drawing. And if she drew the black stone, she would fight. She would run. She would do whatever it took to survive. She loaded the .38 and tucked it into her purse. The town square was transformed. Strings of lights hung between the buildings, casting a warm glow over tables laden with food and drink. A band played cheerful folk music on a small stage. Children ran between the adults, laughing and playing. It looked like a celebration. It looked like a lie. Sarah arrived at 7 p.m. sharp, wearing the only dress she owned, a simple black number she bought for a funeral years ago. Appropriate, she thought grimly. The townspeople greeted her warmly, as if this were any normal community gathering. Margaret brought her a plate of cookies. Sheriff Garrett offered her a cup of cider. Father Michael blessed her and told her to have faith. Sarah wanted to scream. At 8:30, the band stopped playing. The crowd began to gather in the center of the square, forming a large circle. In the middle of the circle was a wooden box on a pedestal. Sheriff Garrett stepped forward, raising his hands for silence.
Friends, neighbors, family,
He began.
we gather here tonight, as we have for 200 years, to honor the covenant that keeps our community safe and prosperous. We give thanks for another year of peace, of health, of abundance, and we prepare to fulfill our obligation.
The crowd murmured in agreement.
The drawing will now commence. As always, every resident of Millbrook will draw a stone from the box. All stones are white except one. The person who draws the black stone will be this year's offering.
Sarah's hands were shaking. She looked around the circle, seeing fear on some faces, resignation on others, and on a few, the very old, the very sick, something that might have been hope. They want to be chosen, she realized with horror. Some of them want to die.
We will proceed in alphabetical order by last name.
Sheriff Garrett continued.
When your name is called, approach the box, draw a stone, and show it to the crowd. Do not attempt to hide your stone or switch it with another. The creature will know, and it will not be pleased.
He pulled out a list.
Anderson, Robert.
An elderly man stepped forward, his hand trembling as he reached into the box. He pulled out a white stone and held it up. The crowd exhaled in relief.
Baker, Susan.
A middle-aged woman. White stone.
Brennan, Sarah.
Sarah's heart stopped. She was third. Out of nearly 3,000 people, she was third. She walked to the box on legs that didn't feel like her own. The crowd watched in silence She could feel their eyes, their judgment, their fear. The box was simple wood, worn smooth by 200 years of hands. Sarah's hand hovered over the box. She reached in, her fingers closing around a stone at random. She pulled it out. White. The crowd exhaled. Sarah stumbled back to her place in the circle, clutching the stone so hard it cut into her palm. The drawing continued, name after name, stone after stone, all of them white.
Martinez, Elena
A young woman, maybe 25, with tears streaming down her face. White stone.
Thorne, Robert
The landlord. So he did live in Millbrook. White stone.
Winters, Patricia
An old woman, bent with age. She reached into the box with a steady hand. She pulled out the black stone. The crowd went silent. Patricia held up the stone and a strange expression crossed her face. Not fear, but relief. "Thank God," she whispered. "Finally." Sheriff Garrett stepped forward.
Patricia Winters has been chosen. The covenant will be fulfilled.
2 men came forward and gently took Patricia's arms. She didn't resist. She looked almost peaceful as they led her toward the edge of the square, toward the path that led into the woods. The crowd began to follow. Sarah stood frozen, unable to process what she was seeing. They were really going to do it. They were really going to feed this woman to a monster. Margaret touched her arm.
Come, you must witness. All residents must witness.
I can't.
You must.
Margaret's grip tightened.
It's part of the covenant. We all share in this. We all bear the weight.
Sarah let herself be pulled along with the crowd, into the woods, down a path lit by torches. The trees pressed close on either side, and the air grew colder with each step. After what felt like miles, but was probably only a few hundred yards, they emerged into a clearing. In the center of the clearing was a stone altar, ancient and stained with dark patches that Sarah didn't want to think about. Beyond the altar, the woods grew thick and dark, and Sarah could feel something watching from those shadows, something vast and hungry and old. Patricia was led to the altar. She climbed onto it without assistance, lying down on her back, her arms at her sides. Father Michael stepped forward and began to pray.
Ancient One, we honor our covenant. We offer you this life in exchange for your protection. Accept our sacrifice and keep us safe for another year.
The woods began to move. Sarah's mind couldn't process what she was seeing. It was too large, too wrong, too impossible. Limbs that bent in ways that defied physics. Eyes that glowed with an intelligence that was utterly alien. Flesh that seemed to shift between solid and liquid, between matter and shadow. The creature emerged from the woods, and Patricia began to scream. Sarah turned away, but Margaret held her firm.
You must watch. We all must watch. This is the price. We don't get to look away.
The screaming lasted for minutes. When it was over, the altar was empty. The creature had retreated into the woods, and the townspeople began to file back toward the square in silence. Sarah vomited in the bushes, her whole body shaking.
Part 6, The Choice.
Sarah didn't sleep that night. She sat in her living room with all the lights on, the .38 in her lap, replaying what she'd seen over and over. The creature was real. The covenant was real. And she was trapped. At dawn, there was a knock on her door. It was Father Michael, looking haggard and old.
May I come in?
Sarah let him in because she didn't have the energy to refuse. They sat in silence for a long moment before Father Michael spoke.
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking about running, about trying to escape.
Can you blame me?
No,
He rubbed his face.
I've thought about it myself many times over the years, but I've also seen what happens to those who try. The creature's curse is real, Sarah. It finds what you fear most and brings it to you always within a week, always fatal.
How do you know?
Because I've seen it happen. 20 years ago, a man named David Reeves tried to leave after the festival. He made it to Ohio before his ex-wife found him. She'd been in prison for attempted murder, but somehow she got out. Somehow she knew exactly where he was. She killed him and then herself. The police called it a murder-suicide, but we knew the truth.
Sarah's hands clenched.
So I'm trapped. I either stay here and risk being sacrificed, or I leave and Derek finds me.
Yes,
That's not a choice. That's a fucking death sentence either way.
Father Michael leaned forward.
the odds are in your favor if you stay. Nearly 3,000 people in Millbrook, and only one is chosen each year. You could live here for decades and never draw the black stone.
Or I could draw it next year.
Yes.
Sarah laughed bitterly.
And you call this protection? You call this safety?
Compared to the alternative? Yes.
Father Michael's voice was firm.
I know it goes against everything we're taught about morality and human dignity, but Sarah, the world out there is full of monsters too. Derek is a monster. The creature in the woods is just more honest about it.
At least Derek is human.
Is he?
Father Michael stood.
I'll leave you to think. But Sarah, whatever you decide, decide soon. The longer you stay, the stronger the covenant's hold becomes.
After he left, Sarah sat in the growing light of morning and thought about her options. She could stay in Millbrook and live in constant fear of the drawing, knowing that one day her luck might run out. Or she could leave and face Derek, knowing the creature's curse would ensure he found her. Or she could find a third option. Sarah spent the next week researching. She drove to Riverside and used the library there, searching for any information about creatures, covenants, ancient rituals. She found references to similar entities in folklore, things that demanded sacrifice, that made bargains with desperate people, that bound communities to terrible obligations. And she found something else, a pattern. Every story about these creatures mentioned a binding, a ritual that created the covenant, and every binding had a key, an object or person that anchored the agreement. If she could find Millbrook's key, maybe she could break the covenant. She returned to Millbrook's library after hours, picking the lock again, and searched through the oldest records. She found the original covenant written in 1793 by the town's founders. We, the undersigned, do hereby enter into covenant with the creature of the woods. In exchange for its protection, we offer one life per year chosen by lot. This covenant shall be bound by the blood of the first sacrifice and sealed with the founder's stone, which shall remain in Millbrook in perpetuity. Should the stone be destroyed or removed from the town, the covenant shall be broken and the creature released from its obligation. The founder's stone. Sarah searched through the records looking for any mention of it. She found a reference in a journal from 1823. The founder's stone remains in its place of honor in the town hall, a reminder of the covenant that keeps us safe. The town hall. Sarah had walked past it a dozen times, a stately brick building in the center of town with a historical marker out front. She'd never been inside. She would need to get inside. She would need to find the stone, and she would need to destroy it. But if she did, what would happen? Would the creature be released from its obligation to protect the town? Would it turn on them? Or would it simply leave, taking its curse with it? There was only one way to find out.
Part 7. The breaking.
Sarah waited until the middle of the night when the town was asleep. She dressed in dark clothes, grabbed her lockpicks and a hammer from her garage and drove to the town hall. The building was locked, but the locks were old. She had them open in less than 5 minutes. Inside the town hall was dark and silent. Sarah used her phone's flashlight to navigate through the main hall, past portraits of Millbrook's founders, past display cases full of historical artifacts. And there, in a place of honor in the center of the main room, was the founder's stone. It was smaller than she'd expected, about the size of a golf ball, dark gray, sitting on a velvet cushion inside a glass case. There was a plaque beneath it. The Founder's Stone, 1793, the cornerstone of our community's prosperity. Sarah stared at it, her heart pounding. This was it. This was the key to the covenant. If she destroyed it, she might free herself, free everyone, or she might doom them all. She raised the hammer.
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Sarah spun around. Sheriff Garrett stood in the doorway, his gun drawn.
Step away from the stone,
He said calmly.
You can't keep doing this.
Sarah said.
You can't keep sacrificing people.
We can and we will. It's the price we pay.
It's murder.
It's survival.
He moved closer.
Put down the hammer, Sarah.
No.
She turned back to the stone.
I'm ending this tonight.
If you destroy that stone, the covenant breaks. The creature will be free to do whatever it wants. It might leave, or it might slaughter everyone in Millbrook. Are you willing to take that risk?
Sarah's hand shook.
You don't know that will happen.
And you don't know it won't.
Sheriff Garrett's voice softened.
Sarah, I understand. You're scared. You're angry. But breaking the covenant isn't the answer. Stay in Millbrook. Take your chances with the drawing. The odds are in your favor.
Until they're not.
That's life. We all die eventually. At least here, most of us get to live in peace.
Sarah looked at the stone, then at the sheriff, then back at the stone. She thought about Patricia Winters climbing onto that altar. She thought about 200 years of names in those ledgers. She thought about the creature's eyes glowing in the darkness. And she thought about Derek waiting somewhere out there, his fist ready. She raised the hammer.
Don't.
Sarah brought the hammer down on the glass case. It shattered with a sound like a scream. Sheriff Garrett fired. The bullet hit Sarah in the shoulder, spinning her around. She fell, the hammer clattering from her hand. But the case was broken. The stone was exposed. Sarah crawled forward, her shoulder screaming with pain, her hand reaching for the stone. Sheriff Garrett was shouting, running toward her, but she was faster. Her fingers closed around the stone. It was cold, so cold it burned, and then it began to crack. The cracks spread like lightning, spiderwebbing across the stone's surface. Light poured from the cracks, not normal light, but something ancient and terrible, the color of old blood and dying stars. The stone exploded. The force of it threw Sarah backward. She hit the wall and slid down, her vision blurring. Through the ringing in her ears, she heard Sheriff Garrett screaming. She heard something else, too. A sound from the woods. a roar that shook the building's foundations. The creature knew. The covenant was broken. Sarah struggled to her feet, clutching her bleeding shoulder. She had to get out. She had to run. She stumbled out of the town hall into chaos. The townspeople were emerging from their homes, drawn by the sound of the explosion and the creature's roar. They saw Sarah, saw the blood, saw the shattered remains of the stone through the town hall's windows.
What have you done?
Margaret screamed.
What have you done?
Sarah ran. She made it to her car, fumbled with the keys, got the engine started. Behind her, she could hear the creature moving through the woods, crashing through trees, getting closer. She floored the accelerator and drove.
Epilogue, 6 months later.
Sarah sat in a diner in Montana, nursing a cup of coffee and watching the door. It had been 6 months since she fled Millbrook. 6 months since she'd broken the covenant. She'd driven for 3 days straight, putting as much distance between herself and that town as possible. She changed her name, dyed her hair, paid for everything in cash. She'd become a ghost, and Derek had never found her. The creature's curse, it seemed, had died with the covenant. But Sarah couldn't stop thinking about Millbrook, about what had happened after she left. She'd searched for news, but there was nothing. No reports of mass casualties, no stories about a town destroyed by a monster. It was like nothing had happened. Or like something had happened that the world wasn't allowed to know about. Sarah unfolded the copy of USA Today she picked up at the truck stop outside Billings, more of a habit than curiosity. She skimmed past politics, the stock market, baseball scores, and weather forecasts, until a tiny article buried near the bottom of the Nation section snagged her attention. The headline was only a few inches wide. Pennsylvania town reports string of mysterious disappearances. Her hands froze. The article was brief. Millbrook, Pennsylvania. Several residents of the small town have been reported missing over the past several weeks. Sheriff Tom Garrett stated the disappearances did not appear to be connected, though investigators were pursuing every available lead. "We're a safe community," Garrett said. "This is highly unusual for us." Sarah read the article twice before she accepted what it was saying. She'd hoped the years would be enough. Enough time, enough distance, enough to convince herself that whatever lived beneath Millbrook had finally withered away after the festival ended. It hadn't. The disappearances had started almost immediately after she left. She felt sick. For generations, the town had believed the ceremony protected them. Maybe they had been wrong about why it worked, but they hadn't been wrong that it worked. They had been feeding something, keeping it satisfied, giving it a reason to stay buried. She was the one who broke that cycle. Sarah folded the newspaper carefully, almost absent-mindedly, as if taking her time could somehow change the words she just read. The coffee in front of her had gone lukewarm. Out beyond the glass, pickups rolled down the highway and a freight train drifted across the valley. A little boy laughed as he chased his brother toward the gas pumps. Life carried on without the slightest idea that a town nearly 2,000 miles away was quietly coming apart. No one here had ever heard of Millbrook. No one here knew what had been living under it. Sarah rested both hands around her coffee mug, searching for warmth. It wasn't guilt that settled over her, it was certainty. Whatever had begun back in Pennsylvania wasn't over. Not even close. The waitress came by to refill her coffee. "You okay, hon? You look like you seen a ghost." Sarah managed a smile.
Just thinking about the past.
"Well, don't think too hard about the past. All we got is now." If only that were true, Sarah thought. Because somewhere in Pennsylvania, in a small town called Millbrook, the past was very much alive. And it was hungry. Thank you for stepping into this story with me. If you have a case, an experience, or something you think deserves to be heard, send it in. You can reach me at studiosinisterpod@gmail.com. The Studio Sinister call-in line is now live. If you've experienced something or have a story you've never been able to explain, you can leave a message at www.speakpipe.com/thesinistersignal. You'll also find the link in our show notes of every episode and in our bio on Instagram and X. Tell your story. You never know who else has experienced the same thing. And don't forget to follow Studio Sinister on social media to stay up to date on new episode, clips, and everything coming next. Because the stories don't stop when the episode ends, and sometimes they follow you. Listen closely. Not everything stays in the shadows.